are my most anticipated horror books releasing in April. Hello everyone and welcome on That Horror Chick, my YouTube channel where I ramble about all things horror. My name is Angie and I am a huge horror fan. From books to movies, I like it all. Something that I keep a very close eye on are the new horror book releases. Every month I check this list and I look at the books that are releasing the coming month. Of course, every month there are many books releasing and there simply is no possibility to read them all. So every month I make a little list with my most anticipated horror books. For April I made a list of 10 books and let's go through them all. The first book is Deadstream by Mara Moore. This is a young adult horror thriller and is 120 pages long. And this book will be releasing on April 1st. After surviving an accident that claimed the life of her best friend, Teresa is now terrified to leave the safety of her bedroom. Since then, her only solace and window to the outside world is an online community she has found through streaming. But one night, the safe world that Teresa has created starts to break down. A shadowy figure appears behind her favorite streamer in one of his streams. And his behavior is drastically changing over the next few days, before he dies in front of his thousands of viewers. And Teresa finds herself in the middle of a life and death investigation. The world is trying to figure out what has happened, especially when this shadowy figure begins appearing in other streams as well. And this includes Teresa's own stream. To save herself and thousands of strangers on the internet, she has to leave the safety of her room to figure out what is happening. But will she be able to conquer her fears before anybody else loses their life? This book was very interesting to me because it is described as something like The Ring. I definitely get where that comparison is coming from. And since Ring and Ringu are some of my favorite horror movies, I was immediately very interested. The next book is Direct Descendant by Tanya Huff. This is a cozy horror romance of 336 pages. And it will be releasing on April 1st. Generations ago, the founder of the town has made a deal with a dark force. In exchange for their servitude, the town will stay successful and outsiders will be kept out. And for generations, this has worked great. Until a visitor goes missing and his wealthy family sends a private detective to investigate. This is when everything abruptly goes sideways. Now Cassidy Prewitt, the town baker and part-time assistant to the Dark Forces, has to contend with a racing army of darkness, a very frustrated town, and a very cute private investigator who she might be falling for. And if they can survive her own homegrown apocalypse, they might even find happiness together. This book is described as queer, fun, and with a touch of eldritch horror. That definitely caught my interest and I'm very curious. Normally I don't read a lot of cozy romances. It is either dark romance or horror, and this is a cozy horror romance. I am very curious to this book. The third book is Freakslaw by Jane Flad. This book will also be releasing on April 1st and is a queer horror of 368 pages long. It is the summer of 1907 and the repressed Scottish town of Pitlaw is itching for a change. Enter Freakslaw, a traveling fun fair populated by deviant queers, a contortist witch, the most powerful fortune teller, and other architects of mayhem. It doesn't take long for the Freakslaw people to infiltrate Pitlaw's very grey world, where the town's teenagers, none other than Ruth and Derek, are seduced by the neon charms and the possibility of escape. But beneath it all, these newcomers are harboring a dark revenge. And as the tension rises between the stoic townfolk, and the dazzling intruders, a violence that has been simmering for centuries, is about to be released. This book came to my attention because I want to read more queer horror. Besides that, I am also a huge fan of freak shows, mostly because of American Horror Story, so this book definitely caught my attention right away. The fourth book is Ingest Me by Leslie Camphouse. This is an extreme horror of only 55 pages long and releases April 5th. When Tristan's mother is pregnant with a baby girl, he hates his baby sister instantly. She was not part of the plan, and neither was the mother's boyfriend. When she is born, Tristan loathes his baby sister Evie. He has never asked for a sibling and thinks she is inferior to him. Early on, Tristan learns on the internet that women have only one way to serve men. I think you can probably already guess where this book is going. And I also can already tell you that this book will have a lot of triggers. This book might not be for everyone. So before you delve into this book, please check your triggers. Because only by the blurb alone, I can already determine that it is going to be an extreme horror. The next book is How Am I Not the Monster by Raider the Board. This is a supernatural horror that releases April 20th. A creature is sent to the earth to feed off the fears of a small child. But it soon learns that it is not the worst thing in the child's life. This book had a very short blurb, but those two sentences were already more than enough to catch my attention. This sounds so freaking interesting and I am very excited for it. This might be my most anticipated book for the coming month. Now we're going on to the next book, which is another very anticipated book of mine. It is called The Summer I Ate the Rich by Micah and Maritza Mullite. This is a young adult horror of about 400 pages long, and it will be releasing April 22nd. Brielle Pettiford loves to cook, but with a chronically ill mother and bills to pay, becoming a chef is not a realistic career path. When her mother suddenly loses her job, Brielle has to step in, and she uses her culinary gift to earn some extra money. The rich families that she cooks for praise her for her usage of unique flavors and textures, which keep everyone guessing what is in Brielle's dishes. The secret ingredient? Human flesh. If you have seen more videos of mine, then you know how much I love a good splatterpunk. Now, I don't see a lot of gory books or books that involve cannibalism that are young adult. So that fact alone already caught my attention immediately and I am so excited to read this book. The next book is from a writer that I already read something from. I am talking about When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This is a horror thriller of 304 pages long, and it will be releasing on April 22nd. One evening, a struggling artist, Jazz, finds a 5-year-old hiding in the bushes behind her apartment. After a violent and bloody encounter with the boy's father, she and the boy find themselves running for their lives. As they attempt to avoid the boy's desperate father, horrifying incidents of butchery follow them. At first, Jazz thinks she understands what they're up against, but she is about to learn that the truth is way more grisly than she could have ever imagined. And when the wolf finally comes home, no one will be spared. The book that I have already read by Nat Cassidy is Rest Stop, and I really like this book. So when I saw another book coming out from Nat Cassidy, I immediately wanted to read it. It went onto my TBR so fast. Honestly, now that I think about it, there actually are quite a few books that I'm very excited for. The next one is another one of those. This book is Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zeng by Kylie Lee Baker. Cora Zeng is a crime scene cleaner, washing away the bloody remains of suicide and brutal murders. But none of that seems so horrible when she encounters the most horrific thing possible. Her sister Delilah being pushed in front of a train. Before the murderer flees the scene, he shouts 2 words, Bat Eater. After that, the bloody messes of her work don't bother Cora as much. She is much more bothered by the germs on the subway railing, the bare hands of a stranger, the hidden viruses in every corner, and the bite marks on a coffee table. Of course, ever since Delilah was killed in front of her, Cora isn't sure what is real and what is in her head. She pushes away all of her feelings and all of her aunt's advice to prepare for a Hungry Ghost Festival when the gates of hell open. But she cannot ignore the feeling of dread when she keeps finding bad carcasses on the crime scenes, or the fact that all her recent crime scene cleanups are of the bodies of East Asian women. As Cora soon learns, you cannot just ignore hungry ghosts. The first time that I heard about this book was when I was looking at the Illumi crate. It was one of the books featured in the Evernight box, and the edition that they showed was just so gorgeous. So needless to say, there's now a Illumi crate box on their way. Sadly not of this book, because I would have loved to have this edition. It just follows me everywhere in my dreams. It was so pretty. I might try to find this specific edition, fingers crossed, but I will read the book anyway. Next to this specific edition, looking so incredibly pretty, the story also sounds so good. And I also think it is an important story to tell. It kind of reminded me of Model Home and other like social commentary books. I am very excited for this one. The next book is The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. 5 high school friends are bonded by an oath to protect each other no matter what. Then, on a camping trip in the middle of the woods, they find a staircase to nowhere. One friend walks up, but never comes back down. And then the staircase disappears. 20 years later, the staircase has reappeared. Now the group returns to try and find their lost friend and to figure out what lays beyond the staircase in the woods. This is a 400-page horror thriller that will be released on April 29th. To me, it also sounds like there is a little bit of paranormal horror in there. And that is the thing that made me curious. And the last one is a short story collection. At least that is what I have gathered. Now, I am not a huge fan of short story collections because I just miss some depth in those. But this one definitely caught my attention. I am talking about Killer Depth, a collection of murder by Diana Gunn. This is a horror short story collection and will be releasing on April 30th. The blurb was also very interesting, and it goes as follows. Have you ever wanted to die? In fiction. Diana Gunn asked the internet this question, and over 30 people said yes. And these are their stories. From humorous to horrific, this collection contains a murder for every reader. Which one will be your favorite? There is only one way to find out. Now, as I have said, I am not a big fan of short horror story collections. This is mainly because I miss some development. I also have this problem sometimes with novellas, and I think that short horror stories will only be worse. But the blurb of this collection is just so interesting, and it just makes me want to read it. Now I'm curious, would you read it? Are you a short horror story kind of person? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we have my most anticipated horror books that are releasing in April. I am planning to do these kind of videos every month. But please remember, these are the books that I am excited for. And these definitely are not all the books that are releasing in the coming months. There are just so many books, and there is way too little time to read them all. So every month I try to make a small selection of the horror books I am anticipating. If you have a book that is coming out somewhere soon and you think I will like it, please leave it in the comments down below. I am always looking for new recommendations. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave a thumbs up, a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe on my channel if you haven't done that yet. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!